The way this works is I'm going to share the screen. So you guys should see yourselves on the side and the PowerPoint. Is that what you guys see?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So welcome to the first Pyramid Plus Zoom conversation. We're very excited to have you guys here and sharing the information. What we're going to do is go over some of the strategies, and as we go through, there'll be a couple stopping points where I ask you guys what questions you have. And if there's anything pressing, just wave your hands and let me know, or just say, "Hey Ben, I've got a question."
Okay.
We'll get into it. Okay. So the topic is developing, teaching, and promoting expectations. Okay. So thanks to our funders who made this possible. So the goal is for about 20 minutes, we're going to talk about what strategies support the learning of expectations for students. We're going to work on developing expectations for home and school. Welcome, Susan. And teaching expectations in meaningful ways and promoting those expectations effectively. We're also going to touch on the concept of stacking evidence-based strategies. So using a bunch of different strategies in a clump so that the teachers remember to use them, but also that the children benefit from a whole bunch of different ideas at the same time. And then we're going to have 10 minutes of discussion at the end. So, okay. So we're using Hemeter, Ostrowski, and Fox's research. Children are less likely to engage in problem behavior if they know what's expected of them. So this is the purpose of this Zoom conversation. Okay. So when we're developing the expectations, the key piece of this is really engaging the children in the development of those expectations. You really want them to be a part of the rulemaking. And what you might find is that many children are going to use a lot of negative comments or negative statements in that process because they're expecting that that's what you're asking for, like no hitting, stop biting, those kinds of things. But we really want to help them get, what do they want to see from their peers? They want to see friends. They want to see people being helpful. They want a classroom that's inviting. So we're going to have them be involved in that process of developing them, and then even decorating the rules and those kinds of things, and encouraging families to do the same. So one of the strategies from the redone CEFL modules is this household rules activity that you can send home with families, and it encourages them to make their own rules, which are really, expectations, those overarching big time skills that we want to see. And we want to make sure that they're telling the children what to do instead of what not to do. And you guys all understand that pretty well. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. So also, we're going to provide the families with some strategies for how to reinforce those rules, because I think a lot of families might get the idea of rules or having rules, but they don't understand that they have to be stated positively, and they don't understand that they need to reinforce the appropriate behaviors at a higher frequency than the challenging behaviors, which is the real shift for people. So we really want to help families and teachers, early teachers, with those concepts. So there's a lot of resources for you guys to use with families. 0 to 3 has lots of stuff. So in that packet that you guys were sent, there were works briefs. There's some backpack series from Taxi that you can look at. 0 to 3 had an article in that, and in CEFL and Head Start. So a couple of I'm going to go over here. One of the major logical consequences, one of the major things that I kind of want to comment on in the logical consequences article is that a lot of teachers believe that using natural and logical consequences, but they state them in a threatening way, and that's not what the research says is effective. So can anyone give an example of how you might accidentally state a consequence in a negative way instead of stating it as a natural consequence. Can you guys think of any examples?
Can you repeat it?
Sure. So how could you state a natural and logical consequence in a way that's effective versus ineffective? So I'm going to give an example of an effective. Why don't I do that first? The right way, wrong way. So right way, an effective use of logical consequences might be to state the children who are cleaning up all get to go outside. But the non-effective way, what you hear more frequently until teachers learn the strategy, is that they say things like, if you don't clean up, you're not going to go outside, which is, or they state it in a sort of threatening manner. It's not the same thing as being in a positive way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are thinking that they're using natural and logical consequences, but really what they're doing is sort of threatening kids, like, you're not going to get outside because you're not cleaning up. And then now the kids are like, well, forget you then, and I'm not going to clean up at all, or they're feeling threatened. So hang on for a second. I'm going to try to, oh, no, there was feedback for a second. It's gone now.
Okay.
So it's really important to look at these articles and go over them before you share them with families or teachers, and really get the nuances of the strategy and try to identify with the teacher what's actually happening, what they're doing right, correctly, and where might they be making some missteps. Because what happens is that people frequently believe they're doing what they're doing correctly, and it's not following the evidence-based strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving into, okay. So tell me about some other ways that you might involve.
Hey Ben, this is Susan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Is that you, Susan?
Oh, yes. Oh, good. I wasn't sure if I was all hooked up properly for you to be able to hear.
You are on.
Yay.
Okay, so does anyone want to share a strategy to get children involved? Do you want me to give an example and then you guys can give more examples? Okay, so one example I've seen is there was a teacher who videotaped children meeting the expectations, and then the children got to show their work off to their families in a parent meeting where the kids were all videotaped being friendly. So she had a videotape example of each child in the classroom being a friend or playing together or following a certain expectation. Does that make sense?
Right.
I think it was like this little movie that they had. The families really loved it because they got a chance for the kids to show off them following these skills. So videotape is one kind of fun way that you might possibly use to get families involved. Can you guys think of other ways that might be get either families involved or children involved in the illustration of the expectations?
I've seen it where the teachers do like a caring caterpillar, like if they've talked about, how to be a good friend and what that means about giving compliments and stuff, then the kids recognize it in themselves.
Oh,
or
awesome.
Somebody else, like they're so-and-so said this to me or helped me, then they put it on a piece of a caterpillar and they do it around the room.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've seen that within the classroom.
That's the kind of thing that if you're a parent and you see your kid's name up there, you really encourage that to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sure children are like pointing those things out to their family.
Right.
They're very excited to see it. That's awesome. Kristen, did you want to share any? Or you?
Mostly I'm thinking about examples in the classroom that I've seen. And I love the ones where the adults demonstrate kind of the negative, and then the kids get to correct them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think that's the only time you want to do that, doing the negative, is when the teachers get to do it wrong so the kids can correct them. And I love doing that.
Yeah, and they get so excited that they know the rule, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a jokey, and also it kind of teaches that, adults make mistakes too, or sometimes, but, it gives the adult an opportunity to show the proper way to fix things if they've made a mistake, you know, to correct, like this is the appropriate way. Oh, I made a mistake, I can check on you or whatever. Excellent. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Okay, so those are just a couple of I've kind of bold-faced the items that we've come across here. So I'm going to use the mouse and kind of go over. So we've done a few examples visually and talked about helping the children to develop. And now we're going to talk about how do we teach them systematically, which we're going to have a couple more visuals in that are there as well. But so this down here, there's this little website. This is a great webinar. It's done by Gail Joseph. You may remember her from several of the Cephal videos. She does the music fields. She does the Super Friend video. Just curly blonde right here. Or she did at one point. Okay. Anyway, so this is a great video. So some of the slides that you're going to look at come from this site, and it's like a 60-minute video on effective proactive strategy. That's a great one to look at. But just wanted to say where some of these slides are coming from. But any of the visuals that have people like this, those also come from Head Start, the Head Start site. So we can use these visuals as a way of reaching other students, but it's also a way that you can do some physical learning styles as well, with either Velcro or sliding, whatever kinds of stuff. So in this example, sometimes the expectations are a little more complex, so we can't expect that children will show up at the library and appropriately play with their peers, right? So this has a couple, in the Library Center, we will turn the pages gently. We will read books with our eyes. We will share books with our friends. So it gives a couple of examples, and that's from Cephal's modules, that teach a child how to enter a center. Maybe they don't know how to interact with the center correctly yet. So any of these things that we teach that we're showing visually would also be something that you would be teaching in a lesson, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that whole process that goes along with it. So let's say a specific child has difficulty with the volume of voice. There's lots of different strategies or tools you can use. One might make your own loud, soft chart with an arrow, and then have pictures of the child showing a soft voice or an example of a loud voice, and having discussions about when do you use a cat voice or a loud voice, the mouse voice. So a cat voice is in circle time when you're answering a teacher's question, or a lion voice is what you use outside. And to use Susan's example, I'm using my lion voice. No, Miss Teacher, that is not the right time to be using your lion voice. We go outside to use lion. Oh my goodness! Thank you guys for reminding me that I shouldn't read this book with my lion voice. That doesn't make sense. Okay. Other times, the visuals can be used to just to denominate or show children that they're not allowed to be entering a center at that time. Computer's closed, it's off, it's charging up, can't go in there right now. That's an example. And sometimes the expectations are just like, how do I interact and play? So for inclusive setting, and just for children in general, sometimes 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds do not know how to interact with each other appropriately. So we want to help them in any way we can to help them understand, what does that look like? How do I go into the block center without just knocking blocks over or dumping all the shelves? And that's my play. Because earlier in life, that's absolutely the play skill you want to teach, right? Just the cause and effect of dumping stuff out. But later, we want to start teaching kids how to, build stuff or interact with their peers. So I'm going to use the arrow again. So you guys are seeing my arrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So like you might build a city block. So, use square blocks along the road or the long ones in the middle, and now you've made a city, and the kids all excited about the city. Or earlier, we've made a tower, knock it down, build a tower, knock it down. And then the last one, we have more examples of this, but like the swimming pool, we're going to make a swimming pool with our little block people. And so here's a sentence that supports that, right? So this is another one of those ones from the video where it gives real specifics. We're going to make blocks into a square. We're going to give a little person to a friend. We're going to say, let's go swimming. And then we put our person in the pool. Well, this is like teaching kids how to go back, forth in their conversations. It builds on their social interactions, but it's also just an easy way to build that up. And you guys can start, like you see a couple of these examples and you can start to think in your head of, oh, I could do something in, dramatic play, or I could make a sentence strip for whichever center, even Play-Doh, stuff like that.
I have a question, Ben. So
Yes.
so if you're working with a teacher and you know that this is something that you could introduce, or that's kind of what might work in a situation with a couple of kids within that room, but how do you approach that teacher without telling them, hey, this would work? How do you get that around in a roundabout way to say, hey, let's try this and see if that would work?
Great.
Because I've offered, I've had teachers come to me and be like, hey, circle time is so crazy. And I'm like, well, let's sit down and make some rules for circle time. What are you struggling with? And they sit down and tell me, and I'm like, well, what about this? And like the rules in the library thing, I'm like, let's try that. And I've left it in their core of like, do it as a class and make your own rules, and then nobody followed through with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understand how that wouldn't happen if we were going through the whole certification thing, because that would be a goal. And,
Right.
I feel like my coaching wasn't very good on that piece, but and now I have more tools behind me with the whole process.
I would think.
But I don't feel like they would get any buy-in if it was my idea and not their idea.
Right. So one of the things about the process the coaching process is that coaching on topic where you say, okay, we're going to talk about strategies that would support circle time. And then
say
you
that
would
again,
say,
because I can't hear you.
okay, thank you for saying that, because I don't want to be unclear. So talking about in the coaching on topic section, so you go on the professional development plan and you notice that I need some support on engaging activities or engaging strategies during my large group times. And then you say, okay, and you bring her some strategies in the coaching on topic section where you offer a couple of different strategies that might be effective.
Okay.
And then now she's choosing amongst those strategies.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So then there's some buy-in. But using the Pyramid Plus approach, slides and or going to Cephal or other places to see that. So we're going right into circle time right now on the next slide, so moving forward. But and you look at some of these slides and you say, here's some other teachers' examples of what they've done. And the teacher says, oh, wow, I want that one. And then you say, great, well, let's make it, let's practice it, and let's do the skill.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that the goal, whatever you're coming up with, is still an action-based thing. It's not like I made these pictures and now I'm done.
Right.
You want it to be like you make the pictures, but that's not you could have all the pictures in the world. It's using them, commenting on them, reinforcing children, individualizing. Those are what makes things better. So here's a couple examples of other strategies that you might use with that teacher, Mara. So there's the scripted story thing, right? So that was one of the ones that came in, was what do we do in circle?
Right.
The social story, but then it eventually gets to this one of the last pages, I think this is page 7 of it, what the actual circle time rules are. You'd want kids to be involved in the creation of those. So this is something that you could click on, change the words to be whatever you want it to be, right?
Okay. Nice.
And then I take that same piece of paper and I use it as a self-management chart for that individual child. So they might have a single card that just has all of the rules on it once they really learn it. But at first it looks like this. They have an actual, what do we do at circle? Those same pictures. And then I can go through it with them afterwards and I can reflect with them.
Okay.
Stay on your tape. Did you use a quiet mouth? And if you have a teacher who's, am I still being heard now? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So if you if you use this with a teacher sitting next to them, they can do that more frequent positive commenting. They can say, look,
Right.
you are using a quiet mouth, or they could point to it and give them a thumbs up, and the kid knows right away. They're getting feedback. I'm
Right.
doing what's expected of me versus getting attention for not doing what's expected of me.
Right. Okay.
And that's where teachers mess up, is they give too much to the negative and not enough
Right.
to what you want to see. So so you have that, you talk about how to do it, and now you can videotape the teacher, and then the teacher's watching themselves and they're like, man, I gave a lot of no don't stops around quiet mouth, or I gave a lot of I said you need to be quiet, a lot of different times versus you are being quiet. You are listening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an important, that's a great strategy to teach to people. But you see how any one of those, like using a scripted story, creating visuals with the class, any one of those could be a whole circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you could even do one circuit moving into individualization later down the road. Okay.
Sorry,
Hey,
I'm in the middle of a
Ben,
call. Can I call you back? I didn't realize I answered the phone. I thought bye.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, I thought I didn't get the phone.
No, it's okay.
Well, I turned it off and he was like, hello? Hello?
You're like, I'm not going to just say like, where are these people talking in the background about circle time?
Yeah,
Answering respectfully. Like, I don't understand.
What do you mean hello? I thought I turned it off.
It's okay. All right. So,
hey, Ben,
example.
could I share a little bit
Please,
too,
please do.
on that topic you were just talking about, in terms of getting teacher buy-in and not just telling them what to do. I mean, I do think that coaching on topic, I have found it's just a brilliant part of that circuit. And I have, it's part of why we need to really know all of the resources that are on all those websites, because I just bring tons of those into my coaching on topics. And I've never had a teacher not be anything other than really excited about all of the resources that I've offered through that. And then exactly what you're talking about happens. They say, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then they're all in because they picked it.
And that's a great, thank you for sharing that, Susan. And I think the more you get familiar with the materials, the more you look that stuff, the Pyramid Plus approach resources over and dig, because there's so much stuff in there. But yeah.
The make and take workshops are great. There are all kinds of things,
right.
Videos, extra videos, and then the little, what is that called? The 15-minute in-service trainings on the Head Start site also have fantastic. I mean, I draw from that. Say, like I've done lots of coaching on zoning, and they have a whole thing on zoning that I drew a lot from to help teachers with zoning. So those resources are really amazing.
And it's they're so rich, and I just, every time I go and I dig and I find a new piece, I always think, if I only had this 10 years ago, like, why wasn't this here? And so there's so much great stuff. So, okay. I'm going to move into the last part about how do we reinforce these expectations, not only when challenging behavior occurs, but also giving those high rates of feedback, right? So here's a nice slide that show and tell, like there's different times you want it, teach it all day long. That comes from the new PPA. There's like a couple new slides in there, and here's one of them. But like, you talk about it, you practice it, and then you reflect on it. So there's a great Shuffle video with this teacher who shows her doing those things, and it's just so great. So on this, I'm going to move the mouse again. Right here, they're in circle time. You can imagine her sitting and reading and going over with the students. I saw this happening today, and it was a great example. Mara, I think you guys gave an example of the caterpillar. So that would be another way of doing it. It's writing it on chart paper, but you could also like make a caterpillar and then add a piece of the caterpillar, or do it on the chart paper and then add a caterpillar chunk. However, I mean, there's other people that have done it in what's called like a friendship tree.
Yeah.
And so where you write the note down, but man, my 5-year-old just got out of a classroom where the teachers would write these things down on little pieces of paper that were related to whatever topic they were doing. And it would show up in my cubby. as his dad, it meant an enormous amount to me. It meant an enormous amount to me that I would get these little notes of paper from Mr. Ray and from Ms. Ram, and Anna would tell me what he did. And it also came sometimes from the peers, right?
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it was really cool. So like, Genoa says that Jude did dun, 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 dun. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love Genoa. And I love that my son did this. And so it builds relationships with Jude and this other peer, even though she's not there. We talk about it at night. We talk about it the next day. And, and now I'm encouraging him to go and play with that other kid or whatever. It's like, it's really great. And they were really intentional about it because my son was like, so those are some other ways of reflecting. You can do it whatever the teacher's comfortable with. So Mara, to your earlier point, yeah, there's times when teachers that doesn't fit their style, so that they're not going to do it. But if they have here's an example of a tree, you can do it on chart paper. You can make it a cute caterpillar, and they're like, oh, caterpillar is cute to me. I'll do that. Or they're like, I'm not into this cutesy tree stuff. I don't want stuff on my wall, but I'll do it on the chart paper.
Right.
And we don't care how you do it. We just want you to reflect with the kids and make sure they are getting more 5-to-1 on the appropriate behaviors versus the inappropriate.
Right.
So I'm going to try to go over this quickly. The transition piece, it's just one of those times today when a lot of teachers don't realize that they're not reinforcing expectations as much as we'd like them to see them doing it. So concentrating on what they should be doing instead of what they're not supposed to be doing. I've had a lot of experiences where people are expecting the kids to sit and do nothing, and kids aren't meant to be diseases. So if you're hearing your coach say, look, I want them to just sit and do nothing, you want them to be doing something. You want to make sure your transitions are well taught and that they have stuff for kids to do and they're not doing too much wait time. So maybe they're singing a song while their friends are going, but when they get to the table, they're good to go. The stuff for them to do is there, ready to go. Some of that is about teacher preparation, and sometimes that's systems work. We're do we give our teachers enough time to prepare the things that need to be prepared?
Right.
But sometimes it's just teacher. Sometimes it's just teacher. Wow, when you're saying 5 minutes, you should be prepping that table so it's good to go as soon as the circle time's over. And they're like, oh, well that would be a good idea. So here's an example of some some teacher data that you might use. So these are, I'm not sure if this is really clear, but so each of the first two bars are commenting on positive expectations, like a children following. So the first time it was really low, whereas the third bar is commenting on not following expectations. I think our names might be covering not, but anyway. So it was lots of nots and not a lot of what I want to hear. And the third bar is, I'm sorry.
So they did each.
Yes, and then they start using it. So eventually they started increasing the amount of time that they were using positive language and decreasing the amount of time they were commenting on negative stuff. Does that make sense? So that's what you'd like to be able to see. But you'll see that this one goes over the course of a bunch of different activity. So this might be something the teacher kind of does themselves, that doesn't have to be in the same day. But they might be like, you know what, my circle time is really stressful. I look at their circle time and see wow, you gave 0 comments on following expectations and you gave 4 comments on not following expectations.
Right.
You can expect your circle time is going to continue to have issues until you beef that up. So later, the teacher got a little bit better at commenting on expectations, a lot better at reducing. So you want both things. You want increase of the commenting positive and the increase of them and decrease of commenting on not following it. Does that make sense? That could be something that you do as another example would be helping teachers with physically moving pebbles back and forth for every time they comment on an expectation. Watching video of their behavior is an example. Getting peers involved in reinforcing each other is a great skill always. And self-scored rubrics. So that might be a skill self-scored rubric the teacher sort of counts on themselves or uses other things. Last one, and I think we're going over on time, so if I understand if anyone has to leave. The last section we're going to talk about is the routines within routines within routines. This was in the handouts that were sent out, but I think that it's easier if you just see it. This is what that looks like, right? So you've got, and this is in the new approach that's coming out. You've got this routine, which is the calendar, which is inside of opening circle, which is inside of the daily schedule. Yeah. So these activities always happen in this sequence, and it's inside of the opening circle. So reading song has its own series of activity, then calendar has its own series of activity, et cetera, et cetera. But by doing that, what you do is you provide, this is kind of this back-end strategies thing, you provide the kids this real structure around their circle time. You provide the teacher with lots of opportunities to give comments and things on their appropriate behavior because they have a poster for each activity, right? So they're going through and they're saying, oh, welcome song. And as they're flipping it over, it's sort of a visual cue for them. Have I commented on anyone appropriately behaving? Now's a good time. So like early in the year, now's the time to like load kids up with, I'm gonna talk about you behaving appropriately. You want my attention. That's what you need to do to get it. Does that make sense? So it's really powerful if teachers get it going early. And because, because it's more routine, there's less challenging behavior. So you can embed social practice. So there's the Days of the Week song where the kids are passing out, Days of the Week song. So they're passing out props or those kinds of things. So the greeting song, they might be passing out props and having interactions with their peers, right? So here's your son. And then, thank you, you're welcome. Next person, here's your son. Thank you, you're welcome. And so you can target students who have challenging behavior, reduce it by having those social interactions that are plugged in automatically. And you don't have to think as a teacher about that, which means it allows you to think about other strategies that you need to use. So using routines within routines really helps because it just becomes how you are. It really reduces challenging behavior, and it also really increases the chance for them to practice these skills that we want to see and develop with them. So those are the strategies we talked about. Does anybody have any questions or want to share any other strategies that they learned along the way for teaching?
I don't think I have any questions other than will we be able, like I looked at some of the things that you gave in the email, but I didn't see if the PowerPoint was in it.
This PowerPoint?
Yeah.
So this PowerPoint, this video is being recorded, right?
Right.
So, so this PowerPoint's going to be located where that is.
Okay. So we can just go write down some of the information. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And one of the things that, and for future, next one is on training, and the one after that is on involving families. So if you had like strategies around involving families, you would send that to me, and then I can put those strategies into this PowerPoint.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I'm hoping to get lots of examples from you guys because, like you guys were saying, the more examples we have, you might see something. Wow, that's a really good strategy. Steal it for yourself.
Okay. No, I thought this really helped give us some good examples and stuff, and had some good websites and stuff to reference again. So
really useful information. Thank you.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mara, Veronica, and Susan. You guys have a great day, okay?
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.